Here we're taking a look at the FileHold Desktop Application. So if you've used FileHold before, you know what this environment is. There's no surprises here. I've also got fired up. I have our web client version of it. Let's just hop back into my library. And of course, I'm going to time out because I haven't been online enough. There we go. And go back into my library. There it is. So here's our library look at it, sort of the similar kind of layout and idea for it. And I also have, just for fun, I also have our mobile client loaded up here. So we're going to have a quick look at our 3 different ways of using FileHold. Now, if you're a FileHold user, you have access to all 3 of these. So it's just a question of how you deploy it. And talk to your IT team if you have any questions about getting the FDA installed FileHold Desktop Application. It's absolutely easy to do. We've built this to look and feel very much like a Windows environment. So for people who haven't used FileHold before, we're trying to, we're not trying to walk through fresh snow here. We're trying to give you something that's very familiar. So just like Windows, we've got our different menu options up top here. I'm going to come back and show you stuff on this later on. Where I really wanted to start with is right over here. So we can see in the upper corner, we've got my name identified. And what this does is it tells us who is currently logged into the system. When you log into FileHold, it's going to only show you the documents that you have access to. Now I'm cheating a little bit here because I'm an administrator. So if I come over to my library and open it up, I see my entire library without any restriction. I see the entire environment. But your users, on the other hand, might come onto this and say, I don't get to see all these different environments. And that's what logging in is going to control. So it gives you access only to the areas and the documents that you're allowed to see. Just below this is a search bar. If you've talked about search before, you know this is available. So I know if I type a value into this and hit enter, it immediately executes a search and shows me all documents that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the value, which you can see I clearly use a lot in my test environment. So it finds me 52 different documents, and I can then go down the search road. By the way, if you have any interest in learning more about search, we've got lots of videos on our website about that. We've done a 3-part webinar before on searching, so there's lots of information there. So please take a deep dive into search. Really one of the best ways to get your documents out of here. So you have a search bar that's available up top here. You can also use this to do what we call a quick search, which allows you to do a more filtered search. So and then I can run my value into that. And now instead of searching for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the system, I'm only looking for it as a particular metadata field for the document. So I'm able to sort of constrain what I'm looking for. I can also quickly go into an advanced search by clicking this button, and then it immediately loads up my advanced search screen. So I can start typing in a qualified value if I want to. By the way, the difference between this screen here, and if I just click search on that bar over here, this is called, this is a simple search or a basic search, whereas this, if I click advanced here, or if I click the advanced button in the upper corner, loads up the advanced search. Now I'm ready to do things like, I'm not looking for everything, I just want to see where the purchase order number equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now I'm doing a much more finely tuned search. Now, we could always get into save search, but I don't want to go too far down that road today either. Now, beside that is the question mark icon, which you also see a question mark icon over here and a question mark icon down here. You're going to see it all over the place. These jump you over to our help index and are usually going to be based on what the page that you're on. So for instance, this here is located right beside our search bar. So if I click on this, it's going to jump me over. It immediately opens up our website, and it gives me full text search or basic queries, which is exactly what that search bar does up top. So it gives us a little bit more detail about how to use that as a function. Then we've got our metadata and file properties button. Now this is something I hope everyone's familiar with. If you click onto this, it opens up your metadata and file properties. If you select a document, then the contents of that display over here. That's one way to activate this. If I want to close this, I can hit the X and that'll close it, or I can hit the button and that'll open it up. So it toggles on, off, either way works. I can also open that up if I don't have it open right now by right-clicking on a document and asking to look at the metadata and file properties. And that opens up the side panel as well, which then lets me clear it when I'm done. Now you can leave that open constantly. It doesn't matter. Like for a lot of people, they say, I want to leave this open and I want to constantly use this. And you can see how the search functions up here push themselves over to let me have the room to do that. That's by design. Now you can also say, I don't want to see this clutter on screen, so I want to focus on the actual environment here, and said, I have a search view that I want to use and I want to make sure my information is displayed in my proper search view. So this is only cluttering things, so get rid of it. You can do that as well. Totally up to you. Your system, your rules, do whatever makes the most sense. Below this, we've got our document tray. The document tray is a way that you can locate documents while in other areas. What do I mean by that? So if I'm in my search screen right now, I can't browse my contents over here or look at other reference documents, but sometimes I've got a reason to gather things together for some other reason. Those reasons could include maybe I want to link some documents together, and I want to link this invoice over here to this invoice over here, which otherwise don't have a relationship together. So I can select this even though it's in a different location than this is, and then forge a link between them using my link function. Or maybe I want to use this for my current working documents. This is what I'm playing with today, so I want to gather my content together and I want to look at it in the environment. I can do that as well. So we have different ways of sort of using this as a shorthanded tool. The key thing with the document tray is this does not change the document's location. So if I grab this content here, so select my document, I'm just going to drag and drop it from here over to there. I've now added this to the folder, but I have not changed its location. The location is defined here. The location is defined here. Remember that your filing location controls who can access the document. So we look to change those as rarely as we possibly can. In fact, you have to move a document to a different place to change those rights. The document tray doesn't change its location. So if I hit clear onto this, that doesn't remove the document from the system. It simply removes it from the document tray. But I want to point out one other thing. You'll see up here I've got some different buttons. These will turn on depending on what I select. So as soon as I select a document, the buttons that are now available for me activate. So I'm allowed to delete this document. I can send this off as courier transmission. I can email it. I can assemble it. I can check it out. These are all things I have a right to do. As soon as I select a second document, I can link it together, but I can't send it by courier because they're two different kinds of documents. But my invoices, on the other hand, are all courier eligible documents, so I could send them as a courier transmission here. We've all seen that. When I have my document tray down below, these will also affect these buttons up here. So if I select this document, what I'm allowed to do with it will turn on and off from the buttons here. So the buttons are actually a great way to tell you what your sort of general rights are to the document if you don't know what the symbols mean over here. A green light means I'm likely the document owner and I have unrestricted access to that document. So I have complete control over it, which again we'd expect to see because I'm a system administrator. All right, just below that we have our viewer. So the document viewer is a way of previewing content in the system. And you can see I already have a document preloaded here in the background. I can close that. So if I wanted to, I could right click on any document and open it in the FileHold viewer, and then it will push it down to the viewer, open it for me, and I can preview it down below. So here's my document that I can look at. As with all things, we can undock the viewer, and now I can make it full screen. This is really good if you have two monitors, which I'm obviously not going to share with you right now, but you can see that if I had a second monitor, I could push this information to monitor 2, where I can do my work on it over there if I wanted to. And then if I hit the X onto this, that essentially redocks it, and now it's down here, and I can either hit the X, and that closes the viewer, and if I open up the viewer again, it's going to reload the document, or I can simply minimize the viewer, and then when I reopen it, it's still there. So the X closes, this simply minimizes. Small difference between it. The only time this is really a big factor is if you're dealing with different people looking at the same document and one person or more has a level 2 viewer and so they're doing an edit to it. While you're editing a document using the viewer, and you have to be licensed to do that, you see I've got an editing option over here, so I'm allowed to edit this. So now that I'm in editing mode, other users are going to be blocked from being able to open this particular version of it. So I want to make sure before I close my viewer that either I hit the X or, even better, close the document. And now we absolutely know that the document's been closed and it's accessible to other people again. This is a rare scenario that comes up, but it can happen, and I like to point it out. And our last option down here is batch jobs. This has to do with our document assembly function. So the batch jobs report takes a moment to load for the first time, and then it'll come up, and if you have no batch jobs currently running, this will appear empty. But it's a quick way to jump over there to be able to see what's currently being processed in your batch jobs. So what's a batch job? Something like, for example, document assembly. So if I have, here's 3 PDFs, and I say I want to assemble these together, so I can use my assemble button up here. And then I can put this into a document assembly, and let's just use our defaults for this and say assemble. I'm not going to worry about too many of the details. We're going to close that, and then if I click now down here for my batch jobs, this is where my batch job appears. So we can see that listed over here, and it's now part of my list. So that's all that this is really used for at this point. So again, most people don't need this. We can ignore it. I'm going to minimize that. All right, we're now just going to keep working our way clockwise around. I'm going to come down here to the library archive. Now, I'm sure everyone on the call here knows what the library archive is, but let's just quickly talk about how we can move a document from the active library and into the archive whenever we want to. So here we have a document. Let's just choose this one at random, and we're going to say, I want to move this document from my active library into my archive. I can do that by right-clicking on the document and then saying send to and go to the library archive. If this doesn't appear for you as an option, there are two reasons for that. The first one is you might not be allowed to. This is administration only. Only an administrator can manually send a document from the library into the archive. And the reason for that is archive is designed to be a one-way trip. We don't want to do it casually. The second way that we might archive a document is because we might have a policy on that document to send it into there. We call that an event. So if I had an event that would archive the document, it would do that for me automatically, so I would never have to do this manually. The second reason why you might not have this, this option is because you might not have the option turned on. Let's just cover that quickly. I'm going to go over to my web administration panel. From here, I'm going to go over to my settings general under library configuration. And then down here, system configuration, settings general. I was confused because I already had it open. And down here we have an option for enable manually archiving documents, enable manually unarchiving documents. Because I have both of those selected, this is going to allow me to take this document and send it down to the library archive. So selected documents, so you move to the library archive, do you wish to proceed? Just before I do that, let's just take a look at what we have here in the background. So we have some structure here, which is the cabinet is sales, the drawer is export for clients, and the folder name is Oliver, Chris. So I open this up over here. You'll see I don't have a sales cabinet right now in the archive. When I right click onto this and I say send this to the library archive, it's going to let me know that it's going to move it. I say okay, and now I've gained a sales cabinet. I'm going to open up the sales cabinet, export for clients, and open that up. There's the folder name, and it's got my document in there. But now when I select this, even though I'm an administrator, I don't have a right to delete this document. In fact, nobody can delete a document once it moves into the archive. The system prevents users, no matter what their role is, from deleting the content. It stays here in the system like this. Now, the reason I did this is because I like to show this as an example of what it means to delete a document versus what it means to delete structure. And I like to point this out to people because sometimes people can get, you're going to see a warning message is going to appear in a moment. So before I delete anything, I want to move this document out of the archive. So we're going to ask me to send this to we're going to copy or move, and we're going to move the file. We're going to go to next, and we're going to choose where this is going to live. And I'm just going to put it exactly where I found it before. So we're going to go to sales. We're going to export for clients, and we're going to choose the folder name, and we're going to say okay. It gives me a warning because by moving this out of the archive, I'm opening up the potential for this to be deletable. And so FileHold's going to warn me about that. So it's going to say okay, and now we remove the document from our part of the archive, but the structure remains behind. So we have a little bit of structure left behind here. If I delete this structure, and I'm just going ahead and delete the cabinet, it gives me a warning saying that all items contained in this cabinet, including drawers, folder groups, folders, and files, shall be deleted. This action cannot be undone. Do you wish to proceed? Why, yes, I do. So I'm going to delete that, and now it's gone. And it can't be recovered. There's no place where I can go to get that back. It's gone forever. It's been removed. But the only reason it was created there is because I moved a document into the library archive, and FileHold creates that structure for me to make sure that my same rights are exerted. I'm going to come over here now to this same folder, only I'm going to go up to this, to the drawer, and I'm going to delete this drawer. So we're going to delete the drawer. We get the exact same message saying that anything including folder groups, folders, and files shall be deleted. The action cannot be undone. Do you wish to proceed? Yes, I do. All right, so we're going to say okay to that, and our object is gone. We no longer have that drawer there. It's been purged out, and it told me that I can't get it back. I can. Here's how we do that. We're going to go over to our administration menu again. This time we're going to go up to Recover Documents. Yeah, please don't save my password there. Thank you so much. And we're going to see here are the documents that I had within that folder. If I select both of them and ask it to recover, the documents are now recovered. I go back into FileHold and we right click on the library and we refresh. And there's my drawer again, and there's my folder, and there are my two documents. but it said it couldn't be recovered. And it's absolutely true. I can't recover the drawer, and I can't recover the folder, but I can recover the documents. And that once I add an object to the structure becomes a property of that document. So the documents come back at the same time. So I like to point that out to people because when we move something from the library into the archive, we create structure, we're free to delete it once we move it back out. But you'll also see that there's no unarchive tool on this here. We're moving a document into existing structure, and if there's no structure there, we have to create it. Whereas when we archive a document, it automatically creates that structure for us. So that's our library archive down here below the library. We have our library. I'm not going to talk about this because this is something that we cover with everybody, but what it's worth pointing out here is one of the ideas of weight. Sometimes we get asked about this. So when it comes to weight, it allows us to move cabinets up and down in a different order. I'm going to explain this. So you'll see that most of my cabinets here are in alphabetical order with the notable exception of my top two. I've got test at the very top, and below that I have cabinet. If I right click, let's start over here with my accounting. I right click onto that and go to the properties. You'll see the weight on this has been set to -2. So let's cancel that. Let's go to my next one down here and go to my properties. And my weight of this one is 0. And in fact, my weight on all of these is going to be 0. And let's just have a quick look here at my SOP. It's got a 0 too. So what that means is that FileHold is going through this and alphabetizing these so that they're always going to be in alphabetical order, but at weight of 0. So if I wanted accounting to be below the SOP cabinet for some reason, I could say I'm going to move this from a weight of 0 to a weight of 1. And we're going to say OK. And that now means that FileHold goes through and alphabetizes everything that has a weight of 0, and then it alphabetizes everything that's got a 1. Now this up here with my cabinet, if I go to the properties for this, has -9. So it's almost at the very top of the list, but my test cabinet, because of course I use this for my testing, so it's the first one I want to see. If I go into this for the properties for the weight, it's at -10, very top of the list. So you can see I've got 21 potential positions where documents could end up in order. So it gives me lots of points of control to move the cabinets around wherever I want to. And we see this same set of permissions when it comes to cabinets, drawers, folder groups, and folders. I can set a weight to them. So feel free to play around with weight if you want things to be seen in a more logical or organized way, because it's a really powerful way to make sure your information is displayed in a logical way for whatever your logic is. For me, I want to see testing first, and I want to see my sample cabinet right away as well. And this allows me to see both of those at a glance, which lets me keep that information on hand whenever I want to. So again, something I really like as far as a tool there goes for sorting. I'm going to minimize my library. Our next one up here is virtual folders. Not going to spend long on this. The idea of a virtual folder, this is as close as FileHold gets to a subfolder. Remember that we've got schema and metadata, which helps us to organize, locate, and tag our documents. So I actually don't need to create too many folders, but there are sometimes use cases where you want to gather documents together and let people see them. That's where you can use a virtual folder, and they're over here. Now, every full user has a right to create their own virtual folders, and they can make as many as they want to. You can see I've got a bunch over here. You can also make a public virtual folder that allows you to add content into there that you can share to other people. So let's see what I have over here. Okay, so here's some documents that I've gathered together for whatever logical reason I have for this construction project. Maybe these, and you can see these are documents from different folder locations of my system. So I've gathered these from other spots and put them together into here for, again, whatever logical reason that I have. But because it's a public folder, I can share this with other people. So I can go into my settings for this, and I can say that in this case, I want this to be shared with my accounting group, or maybe I want this to be shared with my HR group, or whatever rationale I want to use. Once I share it, they now have access to be able to see this folder on their list of virtual folders. So if they go to their public virtual folders, they will see that there. I can control whether or not they can add content. I can control whether or not they can remove content. My goal for this is to share a collection of documents, but it does not give them permission if they also don't still have access to the document. So if I have a user who can't see the accounting cabinet, then this file would be missing from the system when they logged in. They would not be able to see this archived document. Or if they couldn't see the approved folder that I have there, then they would not be able to see this contract. So again, it's a way that I can gather documents, but it does not allow me to bypass the standard permissions that we have built into the system. All right, so above virtual folders, we've got search. We've covered this before in depth in search, so I'm gonna get into a simple search where I can activate a save search. Just above that, we've got recent files. These are the most recent folders that I've accessed within the system. So if I click this here, it moves folder 3 to the top of the list and displays the contents of folder 3. So again, it's just a shortcut tool. You may never touch this, but it's there if you want it. You can see what you've recently accessed and chronologically your last 10 accessed folders. Reviews and approvals, these are for your workflows. So if you have any workflow tasks that have been assigned to you, I have no tasks right now. If I did, there'd be a 1 or whatever the number of tasks I had available for me would appear over here. So often when I'm using FileHold, I leave my reviews and approvals just like this so I can see if a task appears. I only ever sort of minimize this when I'm dealing with a demonstration like I am today. My FileHold, something available to all full users. So you've got a lot of options onto this. For instance, My Favorites. So you can make a document a favorite by clicking the star that's in front of it, whether it's a document or a record or an archive document or an offline document. All of those can be tagged into these as can be tagged as a favorite. You've got something that you checked out. So you have your checked out documents. You have alerts when you subscribe to content, reminders to get taps on the shoulder, what you've recently accessed, so anything you've viewed or double clicked or modified, and then recently added your new documents coming in, your calendar, which shows you any upcoming events that you may have. You can see some reminders, and I even have a task over here that have been put into this, or in your dashboard, which gives you a summary of what's available in the system. So again, My FileHold available to all full users. The only thing it won't be available is the dashboard, because that's only available to administrators unless you have the exposed to all viewers options setting checked. But we often don't see that. So again, this lets you have access to everything. One word about the calendar. The calendar is not like an Outlook calendar where you can set events and schedules for yourself. The calendar in this case is designed to be document centric. So when I select this, it shows me a task. I had a PO that's going to be approval, it's going to be due in that period. So I can see that there's an upcoming task into there. So it gives me sort of some insight into that. So this is the My FileHold section. We're going to close that, and then we've got our inbox here at the top where we can add new documents in. This takes us now to end everything here with our menu bar at the top. We're going to start over here with File, where we have things like adding files or folders. We can also create offline documents. By the way, Add File to the Library does the same thing as this button here. Add Offline Document does the same thing as this button here. That's by design on them. So we get you the same option. The only thing you can't do through the buttons over here is adding a folder to the library. But that's okay because you can navigate to this and then choose the folder that you want to add in and have that content arrive for you. We also have preferences and settings, and I'm not going to go through this in excruciating detail, but I do want to expose this to people. If you're a full user, you'll have access to this as an option. So it means that if I come over here and select my user preferences, now I can see what I have for any preferences that are available for me as a user, including under my advanced settings, anything that I want to turn on or turn off. For example, and things I always point out to people is this right over here. So if you can see where my mouse is, so move to recycle bin instead of permanently deleting. So what this is going to do is move a document from your, when you're adding a document in a FileHold, it's going to move that document to your Windows recycling bin instead of permanently deleting it. So it's a great way to sort of bring documents back. I always encourage people to take a look at these, especially the Advanced tab and the Viewer tab, always worth taking a look at. Contact information, company information, a lot less vital. And then under General, there's a few things in here that are worth taking a look at, but for the most part, you shouldn't need to worry too much about what you're doing with your user preferences for General. So we also have some other options over here. If you want to change your viewing options, we have view preferences. So you can come in here, you can create customized views for yourself in different areas. So maybe when you're using your document tray, you want to see certain fields of information. So I can choose my, wrong one, I can choose my document tray, and then this is my available view for that, and then I can add fields of information. So if I'm constantly looking for particular points of metadata or system information, I can pull that across from here very, very easily. Moving on, we've got under preferences and settings, we have alert preferences. So if you want to be notified when someone adds a document to what you subscribe to, when they delete a document or when they transfer a document, then you can set your alerts over here. And also if you get an email reminder or if you're just getting an alert under the My FileHold section, totally under your control. Going back to over here, we have workflow preferences. So if you want to set up any of your what you get notified on, that's all over here. This is a rich field, and I recommend people take a look. And more importantly, remember there's a help icon up here. If you want some guidance to tell you what some of the different advised settings are, really depends on your use case. Next one down is fast find preferences. So if you have our fast find module, this is how you can enable it and then turn on some different functions. I never use mouse search, so I have that turned off, but selection, clipboard, and on-screen OCR, thank you. I'll take those please and thanks, so I can turn those on from over here. And then our last one on the list over here is print to FileHold preferences. So if you're using print to FileHold, you can turn on your preferences here. This one's pretty simple. Below that, we have your connection options. So if you want to configure your connections for FileHold, you can do that through here, logging off and then refreshing. Refreshing is a great thing. And then exit. And file and exit, it's worth mentioning, is a different process than just hitting the X in the top corner. Hitting the X in the top corner will close this interface, but it may still be running in the background. File and exit, make sure that it's closed. So if you want to make sure, for example, that you're getting rid of any of your working documents when you log in, do that through file and exit. It's a lot more of an efficient way to do it rather than just hitting the X at the top, because it ensures that you're logged off. View is just what allows you to turn on or turn off different views. So for example, if I ask to view the document tray, it turns on the document tray down here. If I ask to view the metadata pane, it turns on the metadata pane. What this is essentially doing is it's saying that I want to turn some of these options on or off. And in that spirit, there's also a full over here, which lets me turn the library into a full view and pushes everything else over onto the side. I personally leave this in partial because I like seeing the document tray down below more than I do with my library. But that's me and my system. You can choose whatever makes the most sense for you. What I wanted to point out is that this is where you can manually turn on or turn off these windows, which some people find extremely useful. Now for me, I can also do Control-Shift-P, and that will also open up that metadata and file property. The point of this is, if you're someone who likes to use a menu option to open up panels, you can do that. If you want to use hotkeys, you can do that. If you want to use the mouse and click the button, you can. If you want to right-click a document to activate it, you can do that too. Lots of different ways to do the same thing. That's part of the system's design. Tools, we're not really going to touch any of these, but it's worth pointing out you'll have access to the tools that you're allowed to have access to based on what you have licensed, and your administration will may not be as rich as this, but again, I'm a system admin, so I see all of these options. And the last thing I want to show you on the FDA is over here, which is called Suggest a Feature. And when you select that, it's going to open up our website, and there's a form down here that you can complete if you have any suggestions about how to improve our software. We listen to these. They're very important to us because we want to know how people are using FileHold. We know it can do a lot. We want to know if there's something that's not working for you, if you want to see an improvement. So don't be shy. Please send these in. We find them extremely useful to be able to bring documents across. All right, so we've been looking so far at just the desktop application. What is the difference between the desktop application and the web client? So let's hop over to the web client and let's go back into FileHold over here and let's just make sure we're refreshed. Excellent, we are. I'm going to close my windows I don't need. So here we are in the web client. We have our library just like we had before in the other system. So that's great. And again, I can open and close all these different areas, including my archive, including my virtual folders, etc. The big difference is, one, there's no inbox. If I want to add documents into the web client, I need to do them one at a time. And I need to complete the process on the document, otherwise it will not have successfully brought the document across. So when we click Add Document, the first thing we have to do is direct it to what I want to add into the system. So let's just locate a document. We're going to add in our webinar from last week. And next I go to Next, and then I have to choose where the filing location is. So we choose a filing location, then we go Next. And now I can complete the document's metadata. It's going to suggest a schema, but I can choose something else. Now, if I was to take it at this point and I was to click off of this to somewhere else, like go over to the administration menu, when I return back into FileHold, so let's go full admin menu just so we can see the refresh, and then we'll go back into the browser mode over here. You'll see that I'm no longer in Add Document. And when I click on Add Document over here, it hasn't remembered anything. It's exactly where I started with before, where I have to browse and select the document. So when you're adding documents to the web client, make sure you complete the activity. So that's one of the biggest differences. The second really, really big difference is you do not get the option to drag and drop over here. So everything that you're doing is going to be manually adding content, manually moving something from one place to another. So we want to keep that in mind, that this is a very much a tool that we're going to use to be able to direct to documents. So because there's no drag and drop, we also have a different way of doing functions on a document. I'm just going to cancel this. I'm going to open up my library. We're going to go down over here to test, and we'll go into one of my folders. Doesn't matter which one. Let's just see if I've got documents there. There they are. So I have my document. If I right click onto this, I get all the same options I had before. But if I left click on this, just select the document, then what it's going to do is it's going to open it up for me in the viewer if that's my default, or it's going to download a local copy of the document. Either way is going to do effectively the same function. Now the reason I'm pointing that out is because in FileHold, if I select a document, so if I just click on something, let's go over to that same place. So over here in the desktop application, if I click on that document, nothing happens. If I want to open this up, I have to double click it. So it's a different action. Whereas over here in the web client, if I want to do anything to this, I have to check the checkbox first. So I have to have the document selected to make sure I'm able to do my work on it. So again, it's a big distinction between the web client and the desktop application. We also don't have the buttons on the side. So for instance, if I want to get into the document viewer, I have to right click on the document and say, show this to me in the document viewer. So open in FileHold viewer, or make a local copy, or check this document out. I get all the same right click options here, but that's my primary way of doing things, or selecting the document and using one of the button links that appear up here. So we're going to see a lot of the same functions. So again, get a copy, same thing as make a local copy. Check out this document, edit metadata, metadata and file properties, and then select edit. So we have the same way to activate these functions, but we're giving it to you in a different way of handling them. So you have a different set of tools to grab them onto. Otherwise, the web client is functionally identical. Maybe a few less buttons, no drag and drop capability, and no inbox. But if I'm looking for documents, if I'm searching for documents, I have all the same functions. We even get the search bar up top here, where I can choose to do it through a fast find search, and then I can change it back to ad hoc, which is my standard search, or I can immediately jump into an advanced search mode. So we get those same tools that we had before available for us. So this is the web client. There's the third version of FileHold that we have available, is one that's maybe slightly less used, and that is the mobile client. Now the mobile client has two great applications. The first and most obvious one is for a mobile device. So if I'm on my iPhone, or if I'm on my Android phone, or if I'm on my Google phone, or whatever device I'm using, if I can use a web browser, I can use the mobile web client. The mobile web client lets me add documents. I can search for documents, and when I click on search, oh, of course, it logs me out because I've been talking for a half hour now. So if I click on search, it offers me the ability to enter a search term as a simple search, or I can even use one of my saved searches and say, show me all contracts that are owned by Andy, and I can run that search. And so then I just need to complete my metadata field, and no search results. I have no documents in there that match that, and that's okay. So I can do my search, I can do tasks. So if I've been sent a workflow, I can do that reviewer approval from here, and of course help, which takes us over to the website. I've also got add, so I can look for documents, I can add content directly from that device and into FileHold. Now there's nothing here that lets me browse a folder. I'm not able to see that, but I also do kind of still get that option. So if I click into this, and then I want to go in and I want to see a search. So let's just try a search over here and say, here's my documents based into this. It just gives me that simple search mode. But I could very easily say I want to build a search based on filing location and make that a public save search. And then that would let me browse a particular folder. So I can go into one area and I could see a folder worth of content. Or I can create save searches to do this. It's meant to be basic, which is both a good thing for making sure that it's user-friendly, but it also allows you to share this with people who are non-technical. Because when you see this front page, we're giving you just the minimal number of buttons. So the mobile web client and the web client are both available for you. By the way, the difference between the mobile web client and the web client is the presence of this word right here in the menu address. So if you're using FileHold right now, you can go over to the website, and if you type the word, let's just do this quickly. So if I type in exactly where I am and I type in mobile, it might give me an error. It's going to ask me to log back in because it's logging me out because I'm using the web client in two different ways. So here's the exact same view I had before, looking at the metadata version properties of a particular document, which I can, if I wanted to, I can download the document, or I can go back to my home page if I want to. So again, I can use any web browser, can be instantly turned into a mobile client that way. And then if I wanted to, I can come back to that. Oops, it's not going to let me do that. Oh, because my mouse is in the wrong place. Thank you. Take out the word mobile, enter, and we're back into the standard view before. So if you can access the web client, you can access the mobile client. It's the exact same principle behind it.